was a paramilitary style raid, right? The government went in there, broke down their door with battering rams, pointed sniper rifles at them, seized all their electronics, a lot of their literature, their archives, for telling the truth about the war in Ukraine, right? And also another reason why they were targeted was because of the real things that they're building in the community.
It outlines some of those.
Well, for example, infant mortality rates and maternal mortality rates in the black areas of St. Louis are higher than a lot of nations in the global south. Some of the highest in the world. And they found out that if somebody black is involved in caring for the mother and the infant, the mortality rates are cut to 10. So they started a doula training program, which is kind of like a midwife. It's not they don't actually do the delivery, but they care for the mother and they care for the child. They started a program to teach black women, right, to be doulas, right, to help combat that. The day they got raided, right, was the day that program was launched. So, Chairman's wife was in charge of that program. So at 5 a.m, right, she's ordered out of her house and the rifle's pointed at her, right? And that day, right, later that day, they opened that program anyway. Right? They built housing for the recently incarcerated, right? So they, upstairs the women and downstairs the men, right? To help people re-enter society so they don't go back in, right? Job training programs, training people, how to bake, right?
Yeah.
And they built bakeries, farmers market, right? Community garden, right? Kids had to play in the street because there were no courts, right? They built a basketball court, right? Painted it with a beautiful mural. So these are the kinds of things that they do by convincing people to contribute reparations voluntarily, right? And then they use that to acquire these vacant lots, right? Abandoned buildings, right? Or they're filled with crime, right? And instead, they fill them with hope. What I mean? Right. And the government doesn't the government doesn't want to do anything to uplift people out of their genocidal conditions, and they don't want to let them do anything to let themselves out of it, right? So there was this trial, right? They were accused of two things: being Russian agents, right? Unregistered Russian agents. This is legal. It's legal to be a Russian agent, but you have to file the paperwork, right? And then they were charged with conspiracy against the United States government, right?
To sow discord.
Well, they said conspiracy. That's just conspiracy, right? No, just conspiracy. Basically, they need conspiracy to be Russian agents. Was a conspiracy against
trying to recruit out of the Russian.
Right. So the main charge was the one under FAR from a Foreign Agent Registration Act, right?
Which is what we need to get Israel read.
Right. That was the main charge, and that had up to 10 years, right? Conspiracy is yeah. So anyway, they had a trial, right? Trial lasted like 10 days, right? The only witnesses called were either the government employees, FBI agents, right, or paid experts by the U.S. government, right? So everybody who testified, because the defense didn't even call any witnesses. Some of them they weren't, but they decided not to. They just cross-examined the government witnesses. So after all that testimony by people who were all paid by the government in one way or the other, right? The jury found them not guilty of the main charge. Said they were not being Russian agents. So that they're not guilty of being Russian agents, but, and this doesn't make any sense, they were found guilty of conspiracy. So the charge is, being Russian agents without filing the proper paperwork, right? They're not guilty of that, but they're guilty of conspiring to do it. Now it's possible you can be conspiring to murder somebody or conspiring to rob a bank, right? And you don't complete it.
Right.
But how do you conspire to not file a piece of paperwork?
It depends on the judge and the lawyer and the
Right.
prosecutor.
So here's the thing. So here's the thing. The sentencing on that second charge is November 25th, right? And because
It's coming.
right, because it's such a logically inconsistent ruling, right? It's going to be appealed on a number, so it might eventually be overturned. But because it's such a weird law, there's no precedent for the sentencing. Normally if a judge sentences somebody, right, they look at the history of what other people were sentenced for, right? And it's never been done before because it's so ridiculous. So it's completely at the discretion of the judge. He can give up to 5 years. He could give time served. He could give probation, right? So in a lot of these cases, they send letters to the judges, what's called character letters, right? Testifying to how good these people are, right? What their character is, their contributions to the community, so that the judge takes that in that effect when they're doing the sentence. So the McCarthy movement is calling for character letters to be submitted, right, from all over the world, really, to send to the judge, asking for a lenient sentence, right? And they want 500 letters apiece for each of the defendants.
Right.
And the deadline is Tuesday. They want them by Tuesday because even though the hearing is like a month after that, right? These letters are being sent to the attorneys. The attorneys are going to review them and then put them together and submit it, right? So they have an online tool at their website.
It's attorneys. Yeah.
Right. I know everybody doesn't have their phones right now, but the website is handsoffmcuru.org and then /letters/. Now, the purpose of these letters is to not to be like a revolutionary manifesto and not to talk about whether they're guilty or innocent. There will be an appeal, and the appeal will most likely be successful, but we're not at that stage yet. The purpose of this is to appeal to the judge for leniency, right? If you write just one letter, write for Chairman Obama, but it's best to write for all three. Anybody who's met some of them personally, like, Jim has met some of them personally, you can write, on your personal contact with them. But other than that, you could just write about these projects that this was the community and the positive impact that they're making in people's lives. One thing you could put in there is like the whole reason they're in St. Louis in the first place. They went there after Mike Brown was murdered by the police, and so there was unrest. There was unrest there. There was unrest, and people came from all over the country, all these politicians and celebrities, and they came for the cameras. Right. And to help stir things up. And then as soon as the cameras left, they left, right? Well, Chairman, he brought his people there to St. Louis, right? They came, right? And then they stayed and they built all these institutions, right? To help change the conditions that was leading to the unrest, right? Give people a sense of hope